Now joining me does a phenomenal job with Monday Morning Quarterback and Sports Illustrated, as well as Football Night in America each and every Sunday during the NFL season. That's the phenomenal Peter King. Peter, Zach Gelb here, Shovio.com. Thank you for joining me. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great, Zach. Thanks for having me on. What's going on?
Thanks for coming on. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. Nothing much is going on here as we're live from the Peerless Boiler Studio. Zach Gelb here, Shovio.com. And Peter, Judge Nelson came out with her ruling. What does this mean for the future of the National Football League? When can we expect the season to start on time?
I think the season will start on time. I think for those who study football history, we're going through a period that was a lot like what happened late 80s, early 90s, when games were played, but the players and owners were dread enemies, but I think the season will start on time, and I think there will be a 16-game schedule. I've told a lot of people who do not watch football to see what happens in a courtroom, but watch football because they like football. I said, every time you hear or start reading anything that has something to do with a courtroom or a judge, just skip it. Because first of all, we're 5 months away. There's a lot of legal skirmishes that are going to happen, but I do think that by the judge issuing the injunction and being so pro-player and so anti-ownership in this, it's a pretty clear sign that the players to me are going to get what they want, which is to play the 2011 season under, at minimum, the work rules for 2010.
When's the earliest that we could see transactions starting to occur? It's going to be a weird NFL draft tomorrow. You're not going to have players like years ago with Phillip Rivers being traded for Eli Manning, and then another abundance of players going elsewhere in this year's draft.
I think that teams are going to naturally be cautious anyway, Zach, because first of all, they don't know exactly how much money they're going to have to spend. Even if there is no cap, I think teams are going to be a little bit scared that all the legal skirmishes and legal wrangling have turned some people off. The money that comes in this year might not be what it was last year. So I don't think you'll see people aggressive in the NFL about going after free agents other than their own guys who they want to re-sign and, a guy like Nnamdi Asomugha, who is one of the best free agents in the history of the system. He's a cornerback in his prime with 3 or 4 apparently very good years left. So I don't think you're going to see people going too crazy over free agency in the early days of it.
We're talking to Peter King. And Peter, let's go into the NFL draft. Cam Newton's projected to go #1 by many people's mock draft, including yours. Do you believe he has the potential? Do you believe he'll be a big-time quarterback when all said is done?
I wish I could give you some very optimistic or pessimistic thing about Cam Newton. I'll only say this, that the odds are against almost anybody who gets picked really high in the draft, because over time, there's probably better than a 50% bust factor with the quarterbacks who get picked very high. But the reason that the Carolina Panthers really have to do this, Zach, is because they're sitting in a division with Drew Brees and 2 other really good quarterbacks in Matt Ryan and Josh Freeman in Tampa. And when you look at where they are, they think they might have a pretty good quarterback in Jimmy Clausen, but they don't know. And it's not very logical to say, well, hey, they're going to be awful anyway. They can just take Andrew Luck next year. This is one of those situations where I can guarantee you that Cam Newton is not the #1 player on their draft board heading into the 2011 draft, but they almost have to, in their eyes, take the plunge and try to get a guy who's going to be competitive with the other mega quarterbacks in their division.
I'm not sold on Newton. The guy that I like is Gabbert, the Missouri product. Where's the earliest you could see the Missouri product going?
I think he's either going to go 4 to Cincinnati or 5 either to Arizona or to a trade-up team with Arizona. I don't think he goes below 5. I think the reason that people like Blaine Gabbert is that he's a real bright guy, and even though he has not thrown the ball downfield a lot in his college career. He's got a good downfield arm. I think people are going to look at him. I've had a bunch of coaches, including one offensive coordinator, told me last night that there's no question in his mind that Gabbert is going to be the best one of the bunch, because even though he didn't play the kind of pro-style offense in college that he's going to have to play in the NFL, that they can see him doing everything right in the NFL. And it is a projection, but I think people view him as having fewer holes than Cam Newton. I would agree with you. I'm not sold on Gabbert at all, because I don't think he ever played great in college. And now you're going to be asking him to play a different system in the NFL. He's not great. He doesn't have great pocket presence either. So, Zach, I think if you have skepticism about the first two quarterbacks in the draft, you won't be alone.
Now, on your draft, you had a 15 Dalton going. A lot of people were in awe that you did that right there. Do you really believe that this man could live up to the hype at number 15?
Well, I don't know that he's going to go that high. Sometimes in these mock drafts, especially when you do them 2 weeks ahead of time, you basically say, look, I want to put Andy Dalton in this first round, and I want to put him higher than other people think. I had a general manager tell me yesterday that he said, mark my words, Andy Dalton and Jake Locker will both go in the top 20. Now, I question that a lot. I mean, I'm
so do I.
About that. But I think that what you're looking at is a situation where, there's a lot of teams that need quarterbacks this year. And so I think you're going to see potentially teams overpick these quarterbacks. I'm not saying that Andy Dalton is the 15th or 18th or 20th best player in this draft. What I am saying is that there's a big need for quarterback. He's a guy who fits, I think, several different offenses, the West Coast offense, among them. And I would not be at all surprised to see a guy like Jim Harbaugh, if he lasts until the second round, for them try to make some sort of deal to move up and take him.
We're talking to Sports Illustrated's Peter King. And Peter, let's move on to the local teams. The New York Jets, what do you think they're going to do? I know Rex Ryan, he's writing books right now. I don't know if he's necessarily paying close attention to this year's draft, but they haven't been able to go out there and sign Antonio Cromartie. Can Rex in this defense, he wants to see a lot of cornerbacks, 3 or 4 stars. Does he go out there and take a cornerback at number 30?
Well, I think, Rex Ryan has been at an awful lot of defensive lineman workouts around the NFL this year. Around college football in the last 2 months. So Rex is pretty up on what's going on in this draft. I think probably the guy who I think would fit them best is a guy who I would describe as sort of the poor man's Haloti Ngata. Ryan's old do-it-all defensive tackle from the Baltimore Ravens, and that's Phil Taylor, kid from Baylor who, probably can play 2 or 3 different spots along the defensive front. Reminds a lot of people of Ngata or, say, a Vince Wilfork, a more versatile guy. I really think this about, basically about what the Jets are going to do and can do. They can go in a lot of different directions, because I think Rex also wants to get a versatile pass rusher type, along the front 7, whether it be a linebacker or maybe a bigger defensive end. If you look at Ryan's history, he just wants guys who can get to the quarterback. He'll figure out where to use them. If they're not classic size, for example, he doesn't really care about that. But so I think most likely he'll take a defensive lineman or linebacker there at pick number 30.
What's your thoughts on Rex Ryan's book? Bottom line here, the way I look at it is, you know what, this is a coach that likes to run his mouth. He's perfect for the New York media. He says all the right things when he came in here saying, I'm not here to kiss Bill Belichick's rings. And you know what, now it's time to take it to the next step. But I guess this is just the kind of thing where, hey, this is Rex Ryan and we're going to have to live with it.
That's pretty much exactly the deal, Zach. Look, Rex Ryan's not for everybody. He's an acquired taste. And, but look, and you know that you're going to have to you're going to roll some eyes sometimes with some of the things he says. I just know this. The last 2 years, Rex Ryan's won 4 playoff games. Bill Belichick's won none.
That's true.
And, it's all about results in this business. You can say whatever you want. Rex Ryan likes to talk, and he likes to put chip out there for somebody to knock off. And that's just the way he is. It's not always going to work, but so far, there's one team in the NFL that's been in the Final Four of the NFL each of the last 2 years, and that's the New York Jets. So, and I'm not saying that's good enough because they haven't won an AFC championship and they haven't won a Super Bowl, obviously. But, I think that Rick's done a pretty good job his first 2 years coaching the Jets.
Now moving on to the New York Football Giants. A lot of people predict them either taking a guard or a tackle and Pouncey or Costanzo if it comes down to it. Do you see the Giants getting more help inside on the offensive line or going to the big tackle position?
I would like both of those guys if I were Tom Coughlin. Now I have heard that the Giants do not have Pouncey rated as highly as other teams do. In fact, I've heard that they've got a low first, high second round grade on him. So I'm skeptical about whether they'll use the 19th pick of the draft on him. Costanzo is an interesting guy, Zach, because when he went to the Senior Bowl this year in Mobile right after the college football season, he was the most versatile offensive lineman there, even more versatile than Pouncey, who's both a guard and center. He can play any of 4 positions on the line. He can play either side, tackle or guard, and did play a lot of different spots there. And so I think he's a guy who, when I look at him, I think he is the most NFL-ready player that there is out there today on the offensive line. And that's going to come in handy this year if the teams don't report until around Labor Day.
If the Giants were to take a linebacker here, who would it be? Because I'm looking at this thing saying, you know what, for a lot of years now, we've been hearing who's going to replace Antonio Pierce. The linebacking position's thin, up the middle. Who do the Giants take? Who do they look at to take at a linebacker position with this 19th pick?
See, I don't think they'd take a linebacker there. I don't think the value is anywhere near there at linebacker. The value is on the offensive line. And the value, they've spent so much both in draft currency and in real currency. They've spent a lot of money to get the defensive line right. I'd be surprised, especially because the offensive line right now is a real need position long term for this team. I'd be surprised if they didn't go offensive line at 19.
We're talking to Peter King of Sports Illustrated, a Monday morning quarterback. Great job right there at NBC. Peter, 2 more questions right before we let you go. Mark Ingram, what's the chances he lands to the New England Patriots?
Well, Bill Belichick really likes Ingram, but I don't think that's one that he feels like he has to have because, if you look at the strength of the running backs in this draft, there's probably going to be about 10 of them picked in the 3rd and 4th round, and there's a lot of guys. I've been saying this. I think there's a chance the best back out of this draft could be a guy named Jacquizz Rodgers, kid from Oregon State, who's the best pass receiver of anybody in the draft. And though he's only 5'7" or 5'8", he's not incredibly fast. He's not a burner. This guy fumbled one time in about 950 touches in his college career. He does a lot of things well, but if you can get a guy like Jacquizz Rodgers in the 3rd or 4th round, I don't see much sense for spending a draft pick in the 1st round on Mark Ingram. But Belichick marches to his own drum, so who knows? Maybe he will take him.
Who are the 3 players in 5 years that Peter King projects in this draft to say, oh my God, how did I miss this guy? Or, you know what, these are the 3 best players in this year's draft?
Well, I think a lot of that depends on who picks a guy. I think the quarterback that Jim Harbaugh picks in San Francisco is going to succeed because Harbaugh knows how to build an offense around a quarterback. If Andy Dalton goes to the 49ers, I'll say right now he'll be one of the best 3 players coming out of this draft. because I think it'll be a perfect spot for him. They're running basically a modified West Coast offense with the 49ers. So he's one. I would say another guy who I think is going to be really good in this draft is Von Miller. You know, he's got something that you really can't teach, and that's the ability to get after the passer. I think he's going to be really good. I think Patrick Peterson is going to be very good. He's basically a cornerback without any big holes. And the last guy I would say is, if you were to ask me, if this guy keeps his nose clean and doesn't get in trouble off the field, I would say Jimmy Smith, the cornerback from Colorado, will have a great NFL career. But what I said at the beginning, if, those are very big ifs to Jimmy Smith.
Final thing here on the way out, I was down at Super Bowl, Radio Row, doing all that stuff, just like you were doing my talk show. And the best guest that we've had on to this program to the date, besides you, of course, was Jerry Kramer. And this is a guy that I'm just stunned how he is not in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. How does one go out there and get a guy like Jerry Kramer into the Hall?
Well, I've said this a few times about Kramer. His case was fought and argued about before I came onto the Hall of Fame committee. And now the way to get him on is through the nine-member seniors committee. And they put two guys up for election every year. And I'm not on that committee, so I really haven't studied his case. I understand that it's a very emotional thing with Jerry Kramer. And I do think there are a lot of people who want to see him in. And, you know, who knows? Maybe in the next couple of years, the seniors committee will put him before the whole body and will study his case again. But his case is just not one that I've studied long enough, hard enough to have a rock-solid opinion about whether he should be in or out. I do know that I think you have to respect the group that looked at him for 15 years. And, you know, a lot of offensive linemen went in, he didn't. And I understand the emotion in this whole thing, but I don't know the case well enough to have an intelligent conversation about it right now.
Peter, thank you so much. I appreciate the time. Look forward to talking to you again as this season hopefully comes about.
Sounds great, Zach. Thank you.